Welcome to Cyber Conversations, the show where it's okay to agree to disagree. Today, Bob and I are talking about Aquaman, released in 2018. This is a movie that starred Jason Momoa, Amber Heard, Willem Dafoe, Patrick Wilson, and actually, you know, I hadn't watched it in a really long time. So I had said a few weeks ago when we were talking about Wonder Woman, I said that Wonder Woman was probably my favorite DCEU movie outside of Zack Snyder's Justice League. But I actually think this supplants it. I like this more, maybe just because the acting is, well, at least from the leading man, better than Gull, whatever her name is. Amber Heard is not that great an actress, but she's better than Godot, whatever.
Are we going to do that again?
I still can't pronounce
Don't do it. Don't do it. Let's just focus on this one because...
Right. But Amber Heard is not very good, but she's not in the movie that much. Jason Momoa is passable. He's a pretty good actor. If I was going to complain about any actor, it's Patrick Wilson. And not that he doesn't do a good job. Patrick Wilson, the only problem with him is, to me, he's very similar to what I was saying about Chris Pine and Jack Nicholson, which is he only plays one type of character. He plays Patrick Wilson. In every movie, he plays the smarmy type. You know, Chris Pine always plays the cocky, you know, heroic type, and Patrick Wilson is always the smarmy, backstabbing, you know, jackass.
Well, you know, but I think of also Patrick Wilson. They did that Phantom of the Opera movie with Gerard Butler as the Phantom.
Mm. I've
More
only
than
seen it once.
more than several years ago, and Patrick Wilson was Raoul in that one. The guy's got a singing voice that's just awesome. But I thought he played that one a little bit differently.
I have to
than
see it
he
again. I
usually
haven't
did.
seen Phantom of the Opera. I haven't seen the movie of it in a long time. I've seen the musical, like in theater, a couple of times.
You mean,
My,
yeah, like
my
the live
the
musical.
live theater.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm,
yeah.
mhm.
My daughter is into acting and loves musicals. So I took her to New York to see it, and we saw it
Yeah.
several times.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw Phantom in LA several times.
Yeah, I saw it
Um,
in LA a couple times too.
yeah. So, but anyway, we're not here to talk about Phantom, although that could be a podcast unto itself.
Well, I don't know how much of a podcast it would be. I think we both like it a lot. We just talk about how great it is and then move
Well,
on.
but we could tell our stories of when we first saw it back in the 80s in
90s,
LA.
I think.
No,
it 80s?
it was definitely 80s.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
anyway,
Oh yeah, definitely. 1980. We were in high school in 1987.
I know.
That was
We
a long time ago.
graduated in 91. I know. Anyway, back to Aquaman.
All right, now that everyone knows how old we are.
Yeah.
Aquaman. Well, in any case, what I was going to say before is this movie, I think, is my favorite DCEU outside of Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Yeah.
The Zack Snyder version. I have to be very careful to mention that because not the theatrical release.
Right, which we covered extensively
Yeah.
in the
What about
last.
you?
You know, the thing I liked about Aquaman was, and I mentioned this, I think, in when we did Justice League, is I felt like Aquaman and Wonder Woman, the first one, not 84. I thought those were the best movies out of the DCEU. I thought Aquaman was just a fun, campy movie. It was just fun. It was just a good summer movie.
Yeah, I
And
actually, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I just, I didn't really find it campy. At least not
No,
overly
let me
campy.
tell you where the campy was, and this is one of the little teeny scenes that I loved is
Mhm.
when Aquaman is going to fight Orm in the Ring of Fire, which just gives me totally Nemo flashbacks. But anyway, when they're going to fight in the Ring of Fire, and then it suddenly cuts, and the octopus is playing the drums.
Oh yeah,
That
okay, that was campy.
that I was 100% in for this
I
movie.
was,
Not that I
thought
wasn't
was,
in the movie already, but like that had me sold. I was like, that is exactly what I want to see.
that
was
is the
like-
Little Mermaid.
No, it's not the Little Mermaid. There was no
What?
octopus playing drums, but
Are you sure?
yeah, there may have
Then who-
been. Yeah,
Who
there may
played
have
the
been.
drums in Under the Sea? Because I'm
Uh,
pretty sure it was an octopus.
Maybe it was an octopus, but still, to see it in that type of movie was awesome. The interesting thing is that Aquaman was at that time it was the highest grossing DCEU film and the biggest DC character film. In fact, Aquaman, the pre-sale tickets for Aquaman beat Avengers: Infinity War, Deadpool 2, and Black Panther. It set a pre-sale ticket record on Atom Tickets. I mean, the
Hmm.
movie Aquaman was made for about 160 to 200 million dollars, and it did 1.152 billion worldwide. So it was the high again at that time. It was the highest grossing. So I mean, I remember the reviews. I think when it came out, it was like at a 73%, which I was kind of surprised at. It's gone down since then on Rotten Tomatoes, because they continue to add reviews to it.
Yeah.
But I thought it was just a fun movie.
It's interesting though because like I liked it, but it is nowhere near Infinity War as far as quality. Infinity War is top notch, like probably the best movie of 2018. Aquaman was a good movie, but I wouldn't.
No, I'm not saying it was better than Infinity War. It's just interesting because I think as we've talked about over this whole DCEU thing is on all these movies we've talked about how I think people were kind of we compare it it's hard not to compare Marvel and DC. And
Right, right.
I think that people were clamoring for something a little more Marvel-esque from the DCEU, which they got a little bit more in Wonder Woman, the first one, not the
Yeah,
second one. I have to always
right.
clarify that. But with Aquaman, it was all bright lights. It was
It was
it was very
colorful, yeah.
colorful. It was everything else.
It
So
had
I
a lot of
think
comedy, but but it wasn't a comedy with, you know, how they describe Thor Ragnarok as opposed to Thor, the first
right,
one. They
right,
say that Thor, the first one, is a superhero movie with a bit of comedy in it, whereas Thor Ragnarok is a comedy movie with some superheroes in it.
right,
This
exactly.
is very much the former.
Yeah,
There's comedy in it, but it's first and foremost a superhero movie.
yeah,
And
exactly.
I liked it. I don't think it was a perfect movie. I have a
No, it
few
wasn't perfect,
complaints about it, but yeah.
but it was entertaining.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah.
it was 100% entertaining. It was 100% just a good going to the movies, just having a good time watching a flick. Enjoyable movie.
So I guess we'll get into it, but real quick, I did want to remind our viewers, for those of you who haven't already, please hit like and subscribe. It would really help us out. I think I have to say that now. Isn't everyone saying that?
Everybody says that. They'll
Everyone
start
says
off and
it.
then they'll be like, and remember to like and subscribe and visit our sponsors, but we don't have any
We don't
sponsors,
have
so
any
we're
sponsors. We
we're
got
just
18
doing this for
subscribers.
the FUN.
So the first thing that I noticed, this is something I remember even the first time I watched this movie, but I remembered it again when I watched it just yesterday. In the theatrical release, I believe it was the theatrical release of Justice League.
Mm-hmm.
Arthur is angry at Atlantis and he's talking to Mera and he says that his mother he's acting like his mother abandoned him and just left him to die. And she's the one who tells him, "Your mother, it killed your mother to do it. She loved you. She loved you so much she left to protect you so that you would be okay." But in this movie, we see that Arthur had cognizance of his mother. He didn't like know her very well because he was still very young when she left, but he knew about her. He knew that she was leaving because it was to save him. So what, they just retcon that?
Yeah, I mean, they retconned a few things. As I mentioned the last time, in the Snyder cut of Justice League, there's a scene in there where because they added back in the Volko scenes
Yeah,
in the Zack Snyder one with who was played by Willem
Willem
Dafoe.
Dafoe.
He comes and visits him, and there's a scene in the Snyder cut where I swear he's standing in the throne room of King Atlan, staring at the trident, which is covered
Mm.
in
In dust and
years of
yeah.
grime and muck and the calcification stuff, and they have this conversation there, and then in Aquaman the movie they don't even know where it is,
Did
and
they
then
say that was definitely King Atlan?
No, I don't think they said, but if you look at it, it's like almost exactly the same area. And it's the king, he's dead, he's leaned forward, and he's
Yeah.
holding the trident like this. And it's like the scene starts off with Arthur walking up to the king, looking at the trident, and then Volko comes up behind him and they have this conversation, and I'm like, okay. And then but in Aquaman, they didn't even know where Atlan's final resting place was. They needed to
Yeah.
figure that whole thing out. The trident was not covered in muck or
Yeah.
coral or anything. It
Yeah.
was just bright gold beacon thing. So, there were things, and it was to be expected because you have to look at it from a timing standpoint, is that the Snyder cut and it originally was supposed to be what we saw in the theaters.
Right. Right.
And
But we didn't.
so,
So
well, we didn't. So when the Snyder Cut came out in 2021, is that what we figured out, or was it 20?
yeah, I think so. Yeah, 21.
2021, so that's 3 years after,
Yeah.
that came out, and that scene, that particular scene, and a lot of that other stuff didn't show up in the Justice League theatrical version. It's the same thing with them talking underwater. They were
Yeah.
in the
Well, I'm
Justice League.
thinking though that
No.
I'm thinking that the Zack Snyder Justice League would not be considered canon. I mean, Warner Brothers doesn't think it's canon because they're going to stand by their theatrical release, and then the Zack
So,
Snyder's version is, just a
right.
bonus.
So there's a difference between the suits at Warner Brothers
Mm.
and the actual people that matter, which is everybody else but the
Yeah.
suits at Warner Brothers. So, in my opinion, I don't care what the people at Warner Brothers say because they don't have a clue.
Well, no,
They don't
but
have a
I'm
clue.
just saying like that's why they probably could, or I'm guessing that's how they would justify Atlan and his trident being there in the Zack Snyder's cut is because they would say, "Oh, it wasn't canon, so it doesn't matter." But
Well,
that's their
sure, and
excuse.
that may well, but here's the thing. So again, timeline wise, in
Mhm.
reality, right? You had Justice League in 17, right? And
Yep.
then you had Aquaman in 18, Zack Snyder cut in 2021. So Warner Brothers or not, it was never meant to be a part of that. It came out after the whole, a release the Snyder cut movement finally
Yeah.
got that thing done.
But that's
So
why, like, the thing that bothered me so much about, whether or not Arthur thought that his mother abandoned him, because that was the theatrical release
right.
of the Justice League. That came out a year before Aquaman. And when I saw Aquaman the movie in the theaters, I was like, what? That doesn't make
Yeah,
sense.
well, in an Aquaman, he talks about how in Aquaman he talks about how he doesn't find out until like he's a teenager when he's training with Volko that his mom's actually dead. But he always thought she abandoned. Why hasn't she come visited me?
Yeah, yeah,
He
but then
asks.
that all happens before the events of Justice League.
Technically, yes.
But in Justice League, he's talking to Mara and he's like, "My mother gave me up for dead and didn't even want to see me."
Right.
And,
And for me, it's exactly what you said. So, because I know we could beat this like a dead horse, is,
I think we already are.
we already are. Well, what do we do but beat dead horses here? But anyway,
Yeah,
retconning, it's just typical with these things, especially when they're trying to build a gigantic cinematic universe.
that's true.
It's just going to be part of it, and people just need to understand that and stop trying to read into it too much.
Yeah.
But
Well, I
anyway,
suppose the next thing we should talk about, though, unless you want to talk about the whole opening, I thought the opening was done fine. I do like seeing Jango Fett because he's a good actor.
yes, I think well, it's funny because Jason Momoa specifically requested him to be his dad, Tamora Morrison, to
Yeah,
play,
yeah,
like specifically was like, this is who I want. And I think it's because they have their that heritage together. Maori. I think that they're both Maori because I know at the premiere they did a Maori haka and they did
yeah,
that together. So I think that was the reason that he did that. Plus, like you said, Tamara Morrison. I mean, why wouldn't you want the ultimate clone trooper as your
yeah,
dad? You know.
yeah.
So Jango Fett.
So
And then
yeah, but
he
I
played
did
Boba
like
Fett.
Yeah,
but
I liked seeing Django and Boba Fett and basically every other clone. I think he's a good actor, so I liked seeing him. Nicole Kidman, she's fine. I never had a problem with her.
I liked the how the movie started when he was telling, it's Aquaman telling the love story between his parents and
It was a
how
little derivative, but
it
it
was
was
a little
okay.
derivative, but it was different. Again,
Yeah,
with this podcast or this particular topic of the DCEU, it's like it was a lot more lighthearted. I mean, we keep talking about dark, 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 and how dark everything was. Suddenly,
yeah.
we get this light thing. I did think that the VFX, although I know there was a lot of in this. It was 2,300 plus VFX shots for this. I did get some, for those of you who watched, what was it, Once Upon a Time on TV? Wasn't that what it was called? Once
I
Upon a
never
Time.
watched it, but yeah, there
That
was a show
computer
called Once Upon a
generated
Time.
background, like at the lighthouse when they'd walk out
Uh-huh.
on the dock. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, it's a little, especially when you watch it in 4K. I mean, that's the problem with digital versus film, is
Yeah.
like you can see the real differences and stuff like that. But I
Oh yeah,
thought
yeah.
I thought the movie started off, really set the tone for it, and then the opening credits and the going underwater thing. I thought that was pretty cool.
I liked it, and then I guess we should talk about Jason Momoa. What are your thoughts?
I like Jason Momoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
did not.
haven't.
He was on Baywatch. I watched Baywatch. I was not a fan of. I think the only thing I really have not liked him in was, I mean, Game of Thrones. Awesome. Khal Drago, awesome. But I was really not a fan of his Conan when he did that Conan movie. I was very
I'll be honest.
jazzed. Huh.
I have not seen very many Jason Momoa movies or shows. I've never watched Game of Thrones. I never watched Conan, not that version. I saw the Arnold Schwarzenegger one. That's the only Conan. I never saw him in the other thing you said. I don't know much about him. My daughter, who's a lot more, she's got her finger on the pulse of, pop culture more than I do. And she made fun of him because she
That's
said,
very shocking. How would your daughter have more? There's no way that's even possible.
oh, okay. I don't know. Maybe just the new stuff. I'm old. What do you want from me? But my daughter, she's not a big fan. Not that she's like she hates him or anything, but like she doesn't understand the appeal. She says that he's appealing to middle-aged women, and that's the only reason he gets cast in anything. I will say that
She
easily my
definitely doesn't have her pulse on the pop culture of anything with that one. I
Well,
mean, I'm just
the one thing I will say, and this is my absolute favorite appearance of Jason Momoa, hands down, by a mile, is the Super Bowl
I was
commercial
gonna say I know the Super Bowl commercial where
where
he
he took
takes off
off
his
his
arms and
muscles.
everything.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
that was fantastic. That
that
was
was
the
pretty
best thing
funny.
I've ever seen.
Yeah,
So, thank
that was
you,
pretty
Jason
funny.
Momoa, for gifting us with that. I know he didn't write it, but he performed it. He agreed to perform it, and thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I know Jason Momoa, I can't remember what his like when he was doing Game of Thrones. I mean, the guy he's come a long way. I think
Mhm.
when they were shooting Game of Thrones, I mean, he got paid barely anything. I can't remember. I might be mixing stories here, but it's like to sleep in a van while they were shooting. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, he was not. He had done Baywatch, and he had his little heartthrob moment back then, but he just kind of disappeared because nothing really happened after that. And so I think it's cool to see a person like that kind of grow and become popular, and he's been a pretty decent role model,
Mhm.
from what I understand.
Amber Heard, well, I don't know. We probably shouldn't talk about her too much.
Yeah, we should
Um,
cut her out as much as they cut her out of Aquaman 2, which
I'm
is
not a big
like
fan of
10
her
minutes.
acting. I don't think her acting is terrible. I just don't think there's anything great about it. She's attractive, but not especially attractive. And the things with Johnny Depp. This is not the show for it, but I'm not exactly a fan of hers. I am, however, a fan of Willem Dafoe.
Who's not a fan of Willem Dafoe?
I know. I
I
mean, well, the
mean,
guy is
that's not
so
just
good.
middle-aged or older women. That's everybody.
Everyone, yeah, Willem Dafoe is such a fantastic. Now that, like, I said before about Patrick Wilson, about Chris Pine, even about Jack Nicholson. I know everyone wants to get angry at me for not thinking Jack Nicholson is a great actor, but I don't think he's a great actor. He plays every part like Jack Nicholson. He's fun to watch, but every time you see him, you know he's going to be Jack Nicholson. But Willem Dafoe is another guy who is so good because he can transform himself into whatever you want. There's
100%.
no hint of what's his name, Volca. When you look
Volko.
at Volko, there's no hint of that in the Green Goblin, and vice versa. Like you won't see it. And some of the stuff that even when he improvises, the best example that I can think of recently was Spider-Man No Way Home when Spider-Man is wailing on him and he starts laughing.
Yeah,
That was not in the script. Willem
right.
Dafoe came up with that, but it was so cool. It was like freaky. I mean, I can't speak for everyone. I got freaked out watching him laugh like that while he was being beaten up. So yeah, Willem Dafoe did a great job here. Patrick
Yeah.
Wilson, like I said, I think that he plays every part the same. And also the other thing, I looked at him and I have trouble seeing him as a bad guy against Jason Momoa.
Oh, I
Against
thought this
Jason
was
Momoa.
I thought this was a pretty good matchup.
Really?
Yeah,
Because
no,
he's tiny compared to Jason
no,
Momoa.
he bulked up. He bulked up for this one. I think Patrick. So we've talked about before how like Quentin Tarantino has Uma Thurman, right, all
Yeah,
over the
yeah.
place, and then I forget who we talked about last time, where we're like, oh yeah, that's their guy. It's
Tim
interesting.
Burton and Tim Burton and Johnny Depp or Tim
Oh
Burton
yeah,
and
Tim
Danny
Burton and Johnny Depp.
Elfman.
Yeah, exactly. So it's that
Yeah.
type of thing. So this movie was directed by James Wan, who's awesome, but he's done all the Conjuring movies. And who is one of the main characters in the Conjuring movies? Patrick Wilson. He also did The Nun. So,
Yeah.
and it's funny because just to mention James Wan, who's great. I mean, his movies are good, and he has a distinctive style.
I think
You
I've
know,
only
if
seen one of his movies, to be honest. I think I've
dude, watch
only seen
The Conjuring movies are awesome. I mean, they're
I saw
awesome.
Saw. He did Saw,
Yeah, he
right?
did one of the later Saws. But
Oh,
James
he didn't do
Wan,
the first one?
I don't think it was the first one.
I thought it was one.
Maybe you are correct, although that would be a while ago. Oh yeah, he
I'm
did do
not.
the he did. Oh, you're
Yeah.
right. He did do the first one. And it's very he did Annabelle. It's very like the remember John Woo back in the 90s and they were
Yeah.
making like movies like Broken Arrow and he always had these distinctive slow-mo action shots where there was multiple things happening like the two people were jumping off of a cliff as a helicopter came over like there was
Uh-huh.
multiple stuff. James Wan in Aquaman, his signature, his part is when they're going into the trench, they're on the boat fighting the monsters,
Yeah.
and they light the flares, and then they jump in the water, and they're going down, and it's like you see flashing lightning, and the monsters are coming in like around them. That's like such a signature shot for him,
Yeah.
to do that type of stuff because he did similar shots like that. Well, Insidious, yeah, he'd add that in there.
I have to
Mm,
admit, some of these movies I haven't seen because I'm really not into horror movies anymore.
just
I
kidding.
used to love horror movies and they got old. I don't know what happened. Either they got old or I got old. I mean, nothing scares me about them anymore and they've just become very boring.
Well,
Uh,
I like, I mean, not to get too deep into it, but the Conjuring movies are really good because they're based off that couple, and I cannot remember their names for the life of me.
yeah, I
And
know they're
each
based on a real life couple who
right
are
who
supposedly
did paranormal
ghost hunters.
investigations and all that other
Yeah.
stuff, and it's really interesting. At the end of each movie, it kind of like Annabelle is based off the Annabelle doll, which has,
Hmm.
I guess, been on tour. And then the guy who was handling the doll died a couple months ago while they were on tour. Really interesting stuff. But the Conjuring movies are very good. I like the Conjuring movies too because it's like the 70s is
Hmm.
when the movies take place because it's representing one of their cases. But anyway, he
Yeah,
does
yeah.
have a distinctive style which he did bring to this and I think it was refreshing and that's also why, you got a more colorful, more lighthearted ish
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
movie than you did than the previous
The
all the
previous
other movies.
DCEU movies. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Um, but that's so okay. And then moving on, what about Yahya? Is this how you say it? Yahya Abdul Mateen, who played Black Manta?
oh yeah, yeah, he was good. I
Yeah,
thought
he
he
was
was
good.
good. I mean,
He
he
was
was in
good.
the only thing I could remember seeing him in is The Greatest Showman, where he played Zendaya's brother. They were the
No,
trapeze team.
I've never seen
Um,
it.
how could you not see The Greatest Showman,
Not my type of movie.
dude? You love musicals. You used to love
No,
musicals.
I like musicals. I don't love musicals, and
You have
I was
gotten
never that
old.
interested.
Ugh,
I,
my God, you're
I
killing me.
mean, I changed a lot, you know. There was a brief time when I was into anime, and then I started looking at it. I was like, you know what, this kind of sucks, and I stopped liking anime. It was
Dude, you
just like
just
what I.
alienated half of our audience. Okay.
I'm sorry. I just, you know, this is me. Now, here's a big question. Well, actually, I didn't give you a chance to say. Did you want to say anything about him?
No,
Because
no. I mean,
I don't really
I
know
thought he
him.
was good. I thought he was good
Yeah, I
as
thought he
Black
did a good
Manta.
job. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then for some I had to put this in just because I noticed it was him, but I really don't know why they would spend the money on him. Dolph Lundgren,
Dolph was, well, I don't know what kind
the
of money
king.
he's drawing these days, but
I don't know. It's just it seems like a big waste to put
King
him in the
Zebel as
movie.
Zebel.
King, yeah, whatever
Yeah,
his name
Zebel.
is,
Yeah.
Narian. I don't know why they would put a big name like that and then not use him, but he's barely used at all. Like there's almost no close-ups of him fighting.
Well, but he plays,
I
you know, in terms of on-screen presence, he brings a tough, rugged king, which is what they needed for that particular character, and I think that, you know, he had that.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean,
I was kind of
appearance.
surprised to see him just because like I couldn't see the point. But
But see,
you know, that's just me.
that's also what I thought. I mean, again, you look at it from that standpoint, and again, I think that's what makes it an interesting movie. Is
It's just like,
you had such a mix of you're like, wow, that's I'm surprised, you know, that
well,
Dolph
yeah.
Lundgren popped in and
But Dolph Lundgren is the, you know, he's known for the, you know, the stuff that he did. So when he made an appearance in The Expendables, it was like, oh, that's cool. They brought back Dolph Lundgren and, you know, they dug him out of mothballs and now he's working again and he's doing an action movie. That's fun. Now they put him in this movie and he doesn't do anything.
well, I mean, things change. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah, I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe like a lot of people liked him. I just didn't really understand why they, I don't know. It went over my head.
yeah.
Anyway, so that's like the majority of the cast. So then the events of the movie, I don't know, you want to talk about this?
Well, again, I thought like the tidal wave lighthouse sequence. I
Yeah,
thought
it was good. Yeah.
that was good. They used a lot of different. They did wave simulations, day for night filming. They did interior water tanks. I mean, it was kind of interesting. They really did some of the visual effects, especially for that scene. They didn't use really any models, but I thought that was pretty good. But the whole
The storyline was good. I didn't love it, but I enjoyed it. It was
yeah.
enough to keep me going.
Right. Yeah, I like the flashback, you know, how they kind of did some of the flashback scenes. You know,
Yeah.
he's standing there with Mira, they're about to jump in the water because she's like, you need to go to Atlantis. And he goes, fine, I'm going to go in there and tell Orm
The
to,
transitions were really well done.
yeah, the F off. And then he's like, this is where I first trained. And then the
Yeah.
camera pans around and it goes from her and it becomes Volko and then it pans around again and it's
And it's her
him.
again. Yeah,
Or
yeah,
yeah, and
that
then it
was
pans around again. So,
yeah, it was that was those transitions were done really well.
you know, again, they go into the water, they go down there. I thought I really like the soundtrack for this movie. I don't want to miss saying that. I don't think this movie's soundtrack got enough play. It was such a blend of a couple of different genres,
Maybe. I don't know.
especially
I was listening to it, like I was trying to pay attention to it a few times, and there's just nothing that stood out. It's not that it's a bad soundtrack. It's just not very memorable. I didn't think there was anything that stood out.
well, I liked his theme, but also what I liked was what stood out to me most with the soundtrack was when they first, when again, this scene where they jump into the water, and then she's like, I got my, you know, we're going to get this transport. It's the only way to get into Atlantis. And I'm like, you guys could swim like at the speed of light or like Mach 2. What do you need
Hmm.
a ship for to travel? But anyway, the thing I thought, that scene where they get in there, her little fishy ship, and
Mm.
they go to Atlantis, and they're traveling through all these different landscapes that are cool and picturesque and epic looking. That music, and then when they come up to the gate where all the other ships are like trying to get in, it's if you listen to that song in particular.
Yeah, I mean
Sorry, I had to yawn.
no,
It
it
was
was good.
yeah, it was
It was
distinctive, and I
good,
think it
but I
was
don't
better
think it
than
was I just don't think it stood out. Like I mean, it's been one day since I watched it. I already can't remember how the music went. But like anything by John Williams, like I'll identify it right away. Or
sure.
Tron Legacy. That's Daft Punk. I recognize it immediately because it stands out. I can call it to mind right now. But this movie I can't even remember. Not that it's a bad soundtrack. It's just not. It didn't. It
I don't know.
didn't.
It was giving me like I was up at midnight watching TV and the infomercial for Pure Moods CD came on. That's the kind of like the weird. I don't want to say what was it? Cool wave music or what was it called
I
when
don't
it
know.
came when it came out back in like the late 80s, early
I'm
90s.
not sure what music you're talking about.
No, the style of music was like, shoot, I have to go look it up. Anyway, I don't know. It just kind of had a blend of
I
some of
don't know.
that
It's
stuff.
kind of like even the Marvel movies. I thought that the themes of the Marvel movies were more recognizable. They stood out as themes. I can call to mind Captain America's theme, even though he had several different ones. Each movie had a different theme or a variation of his theme.
Usually a
And
variation, yeah.
yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy. I know their theme like immediately. I know what it sounds like. Even Captain Marvel and
I can't
Thor,
even remember. I
definitely.
can't even remember. Yeah, I remember Thor, but I can't remember Captain Marvel's because I only watched that movie once.
Oh, I liked it, and her theme music, I can call to mind. This music, I already forgot it. Actually, though, I really think that there's nothing memorable about most of the music from the DCEU. The only theme that I can really remember offhand is the Man of Steel theme.
Which is still a
Oh,
good theme.
moving. Yeah, yeah, it is a good theme. I like it more than the movie. The next thing we should talk about, Black Manta, just because I wrote down in my notes, Black Manta, the costume, comic accurate, absolutely, but silly looking AF.
Yeah, I didn't think it was as silly looking as, but I can appreciate, in the age where, every time a movie came out, like we talked about it before, when X-Men 1 came out back
Well,
in
that's what I was thinking of.
it's like everybody was like, oh my gosh, they're just wearing leather. And why aren't they wearing their comic accurate? And every time something comes out, they're like, why isn't he wearing his comic accurate? And then
Yeah,
suddenly they'll be like, ooh, look. And like even in Deadpool Wolverine, for instance, he's like, look, John Byrne fans, he's putting on his mask or he had the brown
yeah.
sleeves and they're making a big deal about it. I
It's
thought
it's a
it was,
perfect example of why what looks good in a comic book doesn't necessarily look good on a live action film.
oh, I still
Wolverine's
thought
yellow tights doesn't work. And
it
I
worked for
actually
me. I thought that movie was great, but we're not
in the
talking about
first
that movie.
X-Men when he's wearing black leather and he's like, "This is our uniform," and Cyclops I think says like, "What do you want? A yellow, unitard or something like that." And
Yeah,
I thought that was funny because a yellow unitard would have looked ridiculous, and I thought that Black Manta looked ridiculous. It is comic accurate.
it
His
is.
his abilities are comic accurate. His look is comic
Right.
accurate. It's still he looked silly.
I guess I wish that there was a little bit more. I mean, we get some backstory, like with his dad at the beginning of the movie of Aquaman is like, this is
Yeah.
your win, son. And it's like, okay, like, do you not know it's bad that what you guys are doing? Right. And he has
Yeah.
this touching moment with
That's
his son. And
yeah, that's
I was like, okay, do you have a little bit of remorse? And then he's just driven by like, you let my father die.
yeah, and that
Um,
was also kind of stupid to me. I mean, not, he's a bad guy. He's supposed to be stupid. But I kept thinking, his father did something stupid, and now Black Manta is blaming Aquaman for his dad's death. Even though his father, like, he was just gonna leave him and they could get out. Instead, his father, like, shot a grenade at the hull next to Aquaman, and then was surprised when the hull blew up and started flooding the place.
Yeah,
Like
well,
he
I
did
figure
that to
he was
himself.
emotion. I figured he was emotionally distraught. And
I'm
speaking of
sure. Yeah.
that submarine scene was great because I
Yeah.
don't think people realized. I don't think people who are not fans of the comic book. I don't think they realize that Aquaman is pretty freaking powerful. Like in the
Oh
comic
yeah, yeah.
book, like
Yeah.
he's pretty bulletproof-ish, and he's pretty. He yes, he can be hurt, but he does have a fair amount of strength, especially when he's in the
Yeah.
water.
He's very
Um,
durable.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's extremely. I like the scene where he's fighting Black Manta, and he's like, I've got Atlantean weapons now and Atlantean steel. And he shoots him with his eye beams, and that burns him. And he
Yeah.
does get stabbed through the shoulder, and he's got the sword. He cuts his back. It was interesting too, by the way. So, the UK they had to cut out. So, like, if you watch that scene, he gets stabbed in the shoulder, and then he flings Aquaman away, or Aquaman stumbles back, turns, and then he slashes him with the sword. and like basically cuts his back open. You see blood just go, and
Yeah.
they had to cut out, they had to minimize that little bit of blood to get the rating that they needed for
Yeah.
kids in the UK, which I always find to be kind of interesting. And I also think that's why, it's not like they're using blood packs anymore on people, where like they shoot them with a fake gun and then
Yeah.
somebody's
Yeah.
over
The
there
squib.
pressing it. Yeah, the squibs. They're
Yeah.
not using that anymore. It's like all that blood is like put in, and you could tell now most of the time, especially on TV shows, you
They
could
still
tell that
sometimes
the
they still
blood's
sometimes use squibs, especially
well,
if they want it to look realistic, because the computer graphics just can't do it.
right. The computer graphics can't. But again, in a situation where like, oh, we're going to go into this country and we need to take the blood out, it's very easy to just delete that layer off the
Yeah.
video that has the blood,
Yeah.
or minimize it. So I think
Yeah.
that's also why they do some of that stuff. But
Yeah.
anyway, what I might the crux of that was that Aquaman. I was glad again, comic accurate, quote unquote, that they did give him kind of his superpowers, or his
Yeah. Yeah.
his power and his strength and his not invulnerability, but yeah, he's very durable, as you
Yeah,
said.
yeah,
So
he's not invulnerable, but he's pretty close.
yeah.
And I liked that this is comic accurate, but also kind of a little bit of a nod the Super Friends show when he talks to the sea life, and he's got those white circular waves coming out from
Oh yeah,
him.
they did that in the movie too. I mean, he used
Yeah,
his hand,
yeah,
not his. No, he didn't like put his fingers to his temple and
yeah,
go, "Let me summon a fleet of dead white shark or
right,
great white
yeah.
sharks."
But
And,
still,
and
I enjoyed seeing that because it was like, yeah, we're
yeah,
doing
and
Super Friends.
speaking of Jason Momoa and this whole thing, and even though this was a more lighthearted movie, and then the second one, came out and it was kind of a buddy comedy with Orm. It's really funny because I'm like, I just can't see them putting an Aqualad in in across from Jason Momoa.
Yeah.
And if they did, all I could think of is the God of War games with Jason Momoa going, boy,
I
and
would
that's what
Now I
it's going
want
to
to
be
see
like.
the DCEU continue with the Wonder Twins movie.
That
Now
wouldn't
there,
have fit in the DCEU at all.
so there is a scene though that does bother me, and this is just because, for those of you who don't know, I love aviation. I love flying. I should have been a pilot, but I'm a lazy and I'm not a pilot. But I have flown airplanes before, so this scene really bugged me, and you can probably guess what it is. They're on a cargo plane, and Mara opens the door. Mara opens the
Yeah,
door
Mara.
and jumps out. Now, I mean, I'm okay. Like, we have to have a certain amount of suspension of disbelief. Okay, I know she's stronger than a human. Okay, because no human's opening the door of a cargo plane in flight or any plane in flight. The door in a flight, the door weighs several tons or at least a ton. I forget how much. So I'm okay with skipping that bit of logic. She can open it because she's Atlantean. However, what they don't talk about is what happens in the plane when you explosively decompress it. More realistic in the movie, she opens the door, it gets a little windy. Then she jumps out, then Jason Momoa says something to the pilot, and then he jumps out, and the pilot just continues happily flying on with the door open.
Well, they weren't that high. I mean, they were at skydiving.
Dude, you open the door of a plane. Here's what's going to happen. She's going to get sucked out immediately. Jason Momoa, who's standing a few feet away, he's going to get sucked out immediately.
They're
The
not that
plane's going to
high.
the
They're
plane
not
is
that
going to
high.
the plane is going to tear itself apart and the pilot is going to die. That's what's going to happen. It doesn't matter that they're not that high up. It's an explosive decompression. The structure of the plane can't handle it. So opening the door like that, I'm okay with the fact that she's strong enough to do it. I'm
You
not
know,
okay with the fact that the plane is strong enough to
we
handle it.
we did not have a problem in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom when the pilots bailed out.
I did
And
have a problem
no,
with it.
you didn't. You didn't. And you know what? That was real. That was realistic. They jumped out in the life raft, landed on the snow, skated all the
I
way down. And you know
We
what?
haven't talked about Indiana Jones on this
Nobody has a
show.
problem with that.
I
Nobody
have
has
a
a problem
problem
with that.
with that. I
All
love
I'm
it.
saying is it's not like they were on a Boeing 737 flying southwest over the
You don't
Sahara at 37,000 feet.
you don't have to be flying in a Boeing 737. No cargo plane could handle that. And part of the problem with Temple of Doom, something that always bugs me, is that airplane scene because it doesn't make sense.
That airplane, it's not supposed to make sense, dude. It's supposed to be entertaining. And
He
you know what?
jumped
That
out of an
scene,
airplane in a life raft.
that was 100% entertaining.
The best thing about it was Willie. For
That
me
was
to say
one
Willie was
single shot.
entertaining.
That was one single shot. You watch that thing go all the way down. There's no cutting. It
No,
goes all the way down. I
you
don't care
know
if
how
it's
bad it
models. It
is.
was awesome.
You know how bad it is when I say something good about Willie Scott. This is a character I can't stand. She is grating. I don't like what's her name?
Kate Capshaw.
Kate Capshaw. Thank you. But her line was brilliant. She's like, "A raft. We're not sinking.
We're not
crashing."
crashing. We're sinking. Or no, we're not sinking.
Yeah,
we're
not
crashing.
sinking.
That's
We're
right.
crashing.
Yeah.
That was brilliant because it's true.
You know,
can't jump out of an airplane in a life raft.
you know what? Mythbusters did it. No, I'm just kidding. I don't think
No, they
Mythbusters
did
ever
not.
did it. But they know what they should.
Yeah, they should, and then that won't be a show anymore because you're not going to survive it.
Nah, you never know.
I mean, I'm okay with certain things, but I mean,
No, yeah. Well, I still think that I don't think it was that bad of a scene. I don't think they were. See, this is
it
like
just bugs me. But this is
is
because, yeah, I know I'm nitpicky, but it's about airplanes.
well, yeah, I get it. It's beyond nitpicking. It's really like
Well, I love airplanes, and to see the plane just like open with the door explosively opened, and no one's got a problem with that, just bugs me because
yeah,
it
my
makes
dad
people
was an
think.
aeronautical engineer for 35 years, and I never once heard him go, that's not exactly realistic. What would actually happen
Did he
is blah,
see
blah, blah.
Aquaman?
No, he didn't see Aquaman, but he took me and we saw Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
How
And
old
I
were
didn't
you?
hear him in the theater go, that's so stupid.
What?
I'll tell you what's not realistic. You want to know what's not realistic since we're just going to
Fire
go
in
down this?
space.
No. Here's what's not realistic. Well, any sound in space would not
Yeah.
happen. Here's what's not realistic. And Brent, if you're listening, sorry, but I'm going to tell this story. When we saw Total Recall um, with
Arnold
Arnold
Schwarzenegger?
Schwarzenegger, I don't know if you
Okay.
were there for that one. We saw that one. I stood up at the end of the movie because he puts his hand on the thing with the aliens, right? And he gets sucked out onto the thing of Mars, and his eyeballs are popping out, and
Yeah.
his neck's expanding, and then suddenly this magical atmosphere appears. Their eyes go back in their sockets, and suddenly everybody's breathing, and they're all fine. I jumped up at the end of the movie, and I was like, "That was the most stupid, unrealistic thing I've ever seen." And Brent, who is a mutual friend of ours, was so mad at me that I was so complaining. Like, it was one of the rare moments he was truly pissed off at that. I mean, again, we're so far off of Aquaman, but like, yeah, it's at the end of the day, it's suspension of disbelief. It's going in and having a good time. And as we've established with this movie, Aquaman,
I
you
can
go in and it was a good watch. It was enjoyable. It was a total popcorn flick, and it was good. So
Yeah, it's
I'm
just
sorry
that
that
one
they didn't
scene.
do physics and proper
That
science.
one scene bothered me because I'm a big fan of flying. But otherwise, I can handle a good suspension of disbelief. I like Total Recall. I know that it's not realistic, but it's
I didn't say I
fun.
didn't like Total Recall.
Yeah,
It's just
no, I
now
know,
as I've
but
gotten older, and I'm like, okay, it doesn't bother me as much.
yeah,
But
it's
anyway,
funny. Total
I'm just
Recall
saying
is
movies. All
yeah.
these movies, there's tons of movies that have all sorts of stuff.
But I
Um,
did want to say something good about this movie, though, and that is that the movie is silly. And we know it's silly. We've already said that. But it does a really good job of taking a character who has been in the past seen as ridiculous and taking him seriously. Because
hmm,
Aquaman was not taken seriously for a really long time.
right.
Uh, I still remember at some point, I'm guessing in the 90s, and I don't know if it was Saturday Night Live or it might have been in Living Color. I think it was in Living Color, where they did a skit based on the Justice League from the Super Friends, and they're like talking and they look on the computer and they're like, there's a bunch of things happening all at once. We're gonna have to like go one at a time, and each of us is gonna have to do a job. And Superman like tells Batman, "You're gonna have to drive in the Batmobile really fast and do this thing." And then he tells Wonder Woman to go do something, and then he looks at the camera and he goes, "And I'm going to go into space, and I'm gonna stop it single-handedly." And then he gives a smile, and there's like a glint of like bright light flashing
Right.
off his teeth. And then he goes, "Aquaman, go talk to some fish." And they all start laughing at him, and he's just like, "Yeah, son of a bitch."
Well,
I don't
yeah,
really
that's the
because
way.
that's how they took it. Because that's everyone thought he was silly. He was a
Well, no,
ridiculous character.
yeah, and that's what we'd seen is he was always
Yeah,
riding a seahorse, talking
yeah,
to the animals, and
yeah,
Aqualad, who was his Robin, at least
yeah.
in that, and you can stream the Super
Super Friends.
Friends on
Yeah,
Amazon Prime as well as a couple others, but I know on Prime,
yeah, yeah.
it's on there.
It hasn't
So
aged well.
no, it hasn't, but it's still, it's
It's
still in,
nostalgic,
yeah.
definitely. But the
Um,
point is that this is a character that a lot of people made fun of. So I appreciate that this movie does it seriously and makes him a respectable character.
Yeah, and
Like,
I did enjoy that just like in Super Friends and in the comic book, they gave him his comic book accurate costume at the end,
yeah.
which I
Although
guess
it still looks silly.
yeah, it was good though. I liked it. I mean, I guess they were gonna originally hold off Aquaman's suit and the trident for the classic look, but then Zack Snyder decided to release a photo of him in there, and he actually called Jason Momoa beforehand and said, "Hey,
No, I made
I'm
a
gonna
note
look
of it
this."
though. My
So,
my actual note was that Black Manta looked silly, and I said, yeah, and the same thing can be said about Aquaman's suit. It's silly looking,
but
but
it worked. But it
it is
worked.
comic accurate.
Right, but it worked for this movie,
Hmm.
No, I mean, I think it did. I think it worked for this movie, because the whole thing was that way. I mean, right at the beginning of the movie, when they get attacked by the Atlantean soldiers, they shoot the wall open at the house. Arthur's like whatever 2 or 3 years
Yeah,
old or
yeah,
whatever he is. And they came in. I thought everything looked. I mean, I know like the stormtroopers' armor in Star Wars, right? It's very plastic, but I don't know. There's
yeah.
something about it. Like these ones, they looked like. I mean, their guns and everything. It was super. It reminded me of those toys, the toy guns you can get at the store where you squeeze it and it makes a little boo woo woo. Brr, brr, it makes the several different laser gun sounds.
Maybe.
It
Yeah.
had that. It had that look, and like when they bring the armor. And they're like, this is our new high tech armor, and they bring it to Black Manta, and he like takes it up and they're like it takes seawater and turns it into like
Plasma or something.
fiery
Yeah,
plasma.
yeah,
And I'm watching him load this gun and I was like, dude, this is like a gigantic Nerf gun slash super soaker. That's like what it came off as. And it was just like, I don't know, it was just interesting. And but again, that's just how the movie was. And
yeah. I mean, this is a
it
movie.
wasn't distracting. It wasn't till you were like, wow, that looks kind of cheesy. But it didn't distract you from again enjoying the movie as just a good, you know,
Yeah,
movie.
except for the seahorses with legs. There were seahorses with legs.
Maybe they were in the middle of an evolutionary stage. I don't
I
know.
don't know. I don't know. Because last time I checked, seahorses do not have legs.
That's true. Maybe they were like tadpole. Maybe like a
What?
seahorse banged a tadpole, a frog, and they were having like
He
seahorse
came riding
tadpoles.
up on a seahorse with like Arthur, Aquaman showed up on a seahorse with legs.
I don't know. I mean, they also had the brine kingdom, right? And those guys were all
Yeah.
basically crabs.
Although
And then you had the
they
fish
were
kingdom, and
but they were voiced by John Rice Davies, so thank you for that.
yes, yeah. Well,
John Rice
speaking
Davies.
of voices, the
Oh
big
yeah, and
one,
Mary Poppins.
the big one was Julie Andrews
Yeah.
voicing the Karathan.
Karathan, is that how
Yeah,
you
the
say it?
Karathan, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that
We
was
got
that was really
Mary
interesting. And
Poppins.
I know exactly. And I
Yeah.
forget they did interviews with her. Like, why would you voice this? Like, so
Yeah.
interesting. I forget what her reasoning was, but like, yeah, but it totally, it was cool. I don't know
Yeah.
why I just kept calling it the Kraken because I mean, really,
Yeah, I mean it
that's
basically
the
was.
legendary, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah,
Um,
I enjoyed hearing her. I enjoyed hearing John Rice Davies. He's got a great voice. And then there were a couple of other cameos that I appreciated as well. The voice of King, I forget how you say his name, King Riku of the Fisherman. He was voiced by I don't know how to say his name, Jimon Hansao.
Jaimin Hatsu.
Jaimin Hatsu. Is that how you say his name? Hansu?
Yeah.
Is that how you say his name?
Hmm.
I never know how to say his name. I just know that he was he was in Guardians of the Galaxy and a couple of other movies that I've seen. I forget what else. And also, the pilot in that scene that I love so much, the cargo pilot was played
Yeah.
by Lee Winnell. Because this is a James Wan film. Lee Winnell is the guy who wrote Saw or co-wrote
Right.
Saw, and he was, the star, one of the stars of the first Saw movie.
Yeah. So yeah, so they had these other actors that they were considering before Jason Momoa, and as I was thinking about it, and Josh Holloway specifically probably would have been an interesting choice
Mm.
for that. He actually could have played Orm, would have been interesting too for that. But again, I think Patrick Wilson and Jason Momoa both. I mean, there was a good rapport amongst everybody. It was
Yeah, I
it
mean
was good.
they weren't yeah. Like I said, I know I ragged on it a couple of times and I mean I don't want to sound like I didn't like the movie. As I said, I think this is probably outside of Zack Snyder's Justice League, this is my favorite of the DCEU movies. I liked it more than Wonder Woman.
I agree. I think that it was just like I said, it came down to just being more fun.
I think that like in the long run, I don't see myself watching Man of Steel again anytime soon. I don't see myself watching Batman versus Superman again. Um, and probably not even Wonder Woman that much. But I would watch Zack Snyder's Justice League again, and I'd probably watch this again. So that's the movie. I don't think I have anything else to say about it. So we're pretty much done now with the DCEU. There are some other movies that came out after this one, but we're not going to cover them on the channel. It's not that we don't like, well, some of them we really don't like. Wonder Woman 1984, but
Agreed.
we're not really going to cover Shazam either 'cause there's just not much to say about it. We didn't hate it, but we didn't love it. It's kind of nondescript and not really worth mentioning. And the stuff that came out afterward, like some of it was okay and some of it was bad, and there's just no point. So, what we're gonna do instead, the week of Halloween, we are gonna discuss Halloween movies and what makes them Halloween-ish movies. And then after that, we're gonna start hitting the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And that's gonna be a huge undertaking, so that's gonna keep us occupied for at least a little while.
A year.
At least.
Yeah.
There's 23 movies, so yeah, we're yeah. We're not gonna do the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe, but we're probably gonna stop at No Way Home. And again, that's not because we don't like the movies that came out after No Way Home. I actually liked a few of them a lot, but it's still like that's where the end of the main storyline ended, and I mean, by the time we get to that point, there will probably be 30 more Marvel movies, and maybe we will decide to continue.
Yeah,
but for
30
now,
more movies and TV shows, but whatever.
yeah, but for now, the plan is just to do up to No Way Home, I think.
Yep.
Spider-Man No Way Home. So that's the show. If you haven't already, please hit like and subscribe. And as always, make tomorrow better than yesterday.